When it comes to evidence, there are three types: examples, stats, and testimony. And I want to take a minute to just look at examples. What examples are instances that provide detailed insight into our topics. So, what we're trying to get from an example is not an exploration of the entire topic or everything that's involved in the topic or the larger population. We're focusing in on a specific instance or a group of instances that allow us to get some detailed insight into this topic or issue. You'll see that I have a couple of example speeches to demonstrate what examples do for us when we're using them in a speech. And the first is a speech about how YouTube is driving innovation. And you'll see that the speaker uses several different examples. He starts out talking about a young boy who learned dance moves through YouTube and then put his own video on there to challenge other people to develop their own dance moves. And we see that the example really ties back to his message of how YouTube is driving this sort of innovation. The speaker then moves on to an example about how a dance troupe of these YouTube performers actually formed and is performing, and that example helps illustrate this idea of YouTube driving innovation, because it's not just on YouTube. Once it's out on YouTube, now it's being taken more into the mainstream. And the second speech that I think really does a good job of using an example does so in a way that helps illustrate how something works. And that's from Bill Gates's Harvard commencement speech from a few years ago. And if you look at the 15:15 mark of that speech and watch for about 2 minutes, you'll see how he uses an example to demonstrate how we execute a problem-solving process. And he focuses in on AIDS as an example of that process. And by doing that, he gives us something that's very concrete and allows us to better understand what he's talking about. And that's really one of the most powerful things that you can get from an example, is an illustration of what you're discussing. The other thing that examples do is that they also set up another type of evidence and complement it really well, and that's stats, because examples provide detailed information about a specific instance. Stats give us a broader look. So these two things really go hand in hand. And if you have good examples to illustrate the point that you're making with your stats, then not only do you have the larger population, but you get really nice insight into a specific part of that population.